Okay, dear young persons, and a special thank you to Dalia and Helen for your wonderful introduction to this panel, truly inspiring. And dear all persons here in this event. Let me first welcome this initiative to organize this conference. I think we need this meeting in Tallinn, and we need to share ideas and urgently push hard for good solutions. Since last autumn, August 2015, our office, I and my colleagues at the Ombudsman for Children in Sweden, we have talked to more than 650 refugee children seeking asylum in Sweden. Let's see if it works. You have to push hard. I want to find my father again and be able to be with him. That is my biggest dream and wish. I only have one father in this world. To live with him, that is what I want. I would say that this is a typical quote from a child I met in an emergency shelter in Sweden. The children we have talked to, they express loneliness, lack of information, anxiety, health problems, and of course a strong need to have an adult person, a legal guardian, to ask questions and get support from. And of course they miss their families. In Sweden, more than 160,000 persons applied for international protection last year, an all-time high. Out of these, 70,000 were children, half of which arrived without their parents. The huge amount of refugees arriving in a short time, of course, put a strain on the Swedish reception system, which could not easily and fast adapt to this new situation. In particular, this concerned children who are the responsibility of the social services in the municipalities. And this is a sector which was already in a crisis. When my office met with unaccompanied children in emergency shelters last year, we found that many basic children's rights were violated. Children were put in shelters that were not adapted to children. And many of these children were sick, and they were also refused at that time health care. There was a huge lack, in fact, of proper clothing for the children, not being able to go outside. You can imagine the climate here in Tallinn, it's almost the same in Sweden. And none of the children we met, none of them had at that time been assigned a guardian, even though most of them had been in Sweden for weeks and months. And there was no access to education at that time. When the children finally were transferred to their assigned municipalities in Sweden later on, the situation improved. Most of them got access to school, and they got also legal guardians. But the healthcare situation for children on the move was and is still of particular concern. So this year, the Ombudsman Office, we have continued to meet refugee children, and we have also sent a questionnaire to 1,000 schools, 500 elementary schools and 500 secondary schools, and to the school nurses to ask questions about the current situation. And the preliminary result, I must say, is worrying. The school nurses respond that children who enter the school system show signs of mental health problems, such as PTSD and trauma. It is the view of the nurses that the long waiting period before a decision is taken in relation to the asylum application seriously worsens children's mental health. In many cases, children have spent months, even years in Sweden without a decision on their future. And there are also big and unacceptable differences between schools in relation to the health care children receive. And this is both in relation to physical and mental health care and access to that. We have discussed this data last week, in fact, with national experts in Sweden from public authorities, universities, and leading NGOs. And they all agree that the lack of proper support regarding especially the mental health problems many refugee children suffer from both as a result, of course, of what they have experienced earlier on in life, and the shortcomings of the asylum process, that these shortcomings urgently needs to be addressed. On the positive note, I think we need to mention and learn from how well the civil society in Sweden responded during the refugee influx during last fall. When the Swedish system for reception didn't work perfectly well, it was civil society who stepped up and ensured that the refugees were welcomed to Sweden in a human way. Well-established organizations, together with newly founded grassroots movements, they were at the train stations, they met and assisted the refugees, and many organized activities at the shelters where the refugees stayed during the initial procedure. And I think it is in fact vital in the future to more actively involve the civil society, because it's only through interaction between human beings you could build true integration and understanding. Finally, time is running fast here in Tallinn. I would like to end by a few words on the Commission's proposal on a new common European asylum system. As has been mentioned, the Network of Ombudspersons for Children, ENOC, published a report earlier this year highlighting risks children face while on the move to and through Europe, as well as in destination countries. We also highlighted some of the rights violations we identified in this report. And I'm worried that the proposal from the Commission will not remove the risk we have identified or strengthen the rights for children. I'd say rather the opposite. Of particular concern is the possibility to place children in detention, as mentioned by the Commissioner earlier on. And this is, of course, in clear violation of the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Another concern I and my colleagues in ENOC has is the proposal to only issue temporary residence permits for child refugees. This will not lead to durable solutions for children, and it will not facilitate the integration of these children. And it will jeopardize their right to education, health, and rehabilitation. I think we all need to do what it takes to ensure that this period in time that we live in will not be seen by our grandchildren as the time when human rights were brought down in Europe or elsewhere, but rather as a time when we all truly stood up for all human rights, not least the rights of the child. And the starting point is, of course, to remember that each child is an individual, a person with a name, a person with a history, a person with dreams about the future. And let me close with a quote from one of the children I met. "If God wants to, I will become a psychologist. I didn't have much hope for that before, but since I came here, I feel a little bit more hopeful." So let's share this hope, and thank you for the attention.